And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show. It's Monday, September 22nd, and we've got 3 games ahead of us tonight. And we've got Monday Night Football, Lions and Ravens. Laffy and Greg are hitting a live show, either ending right now or they just finished up. Either way, so make sure you're checking that one out if you're a fan of the NFL side. But we've still got baseball. This is the final week of the regular season, and we are here just like we are every other day to break it down. And we've got a very dynamic set of options for ourselves today. You could tell I've got a different background today. I gotta be honest here. I legitimately hate the wallpaper behind me. Oh, it's doing the double thumbs up stuff again. Yeah, nice. We're back at it again. I haven't seen this stuff in a while. Let's hit the rock on, dude. Is it gonna do anything? No? Thumbs down? Oh yeah, there we go. It's working. For those of you watching along on YouTube or Twitter, my emojis with my hands are still working. That's always fun. We got 3 games. We got Nats and Atlanta. We've got the Cardinals and the Giants. We've got the Brewers and the Padres. In order to make my dogs listen to me more, I have moved to my wife's office while she's out of town, which is working out for me so far. We'll see how long it works out for me as we keep this one going. But we got a lot to talk about. Go to Tails. Let's start there. Go to oddshopper.com if you want to get there. But I dropped a top stacks and top pitchers article already. So if you head to Tails, you can go to the picks feed if you want. It's going to show up there along with a boatload of other stuff. I have my stuff directly on my feed. So if I go to the My Picks feed, you'll see the things that I've written. If you go to just the Picks feed in general, you'll get everybody's stuff. This is what I've got. I dropped the top stacks article right here if you want to take a look at it. I've dropped the top pitchers article if you want to see it. So those are both out already. And if you're looking for more stuff, whether it's from Laffy, whether it's from Greg, Eric, all of the other assorted experts that we have at Tails, you can see it all here. Totally free on this picks feed. Legitimate picks for whatever you're looking for. My baseball stuff, cheat sheets for tonight. You name it, we've got it. So make sure you're checking out everything on Tails. There's one other thing I want to touch on, and I don't have anything to share for it, I don't think. But you know what? Is this it? It is. Okay, so you guys can see on the screen right now. A couple weeks ago, friend of the program, you see him on the screen now, at Morgan Wiper on Twitter, had a monster MLB day. He won the ultimate main event, or chopped the ultimate main event on DraftKings, but also finished 4th and 7th and 10th and 14th or something. Ended up coming away with close to $1 million. And it was great. We did an interview with him. It was awesome to see. Morgan won the Millie on FanDuel yesterday. So take that 800K plus that he pulled in on the baseball side, tack on an extra $1 million, which was acquired yesterday. This man is up close to $2 million in the past 6 to 8 weeks using the tools at Stokastic.com. We're going to have a lot more to say about that over the next day or two. And since this is a baseball show and he won on football, I don't want to say too much, but I got to give him the shout out. Links to the tools in the description if you're looking to get him. But yeah, shout out to Morgan for shipping another milli. This dude is printing money as of late. Share some for the rest of us. So now we're going to break this down. If we're here for the full hour, I would be shocked. So we shall see when this actually finishes up. But I think for now, we got to break down a little bit of this slate. I know I'm not going to have a big crew here today, but I'll have a little bit. And we got to start with Chris Sale, the clear top pitcher today by more than a mile, many miles, by what are those things called? Marathon. That's the word I'm looking for. 9,500 for Sale. That's $500 more expensive than Freddie Peralta, $1,000 more expensive than Nick Pivetta. Everybody else is on a different salary tier. He's got the lowest implied total of any arm on today's slate at 3.1. 65% chance of being a top 2 pitcher is double anybody else on the slate. And if you really want to see how crazy things are, he's also the number 1 value, which you don't typically see for the most expensive arm. You see that for bats a lot. You don't really see it for arms as much. Chris Sale has a 51% chance of being one of the top 2 values. He is currently projected for 89% ownership. I don't see a single thing wrong with it. And like, it's not even close. I mean, let's just start with the Sale piece of it all. James says, another Stokastic Millie winner, huh? How about a 50% off promo? I would expect us to be running something for it. I haven't seen anything yet, but we typically do run something off of a deal like this. So I don't know what it's going to be. You'll definitely see that more on our NFL shows. We've got NFL Live Before Lock later tonight. Laffy and Greg had a show earlier as well. But I would not be surprised to see some sort of promo to celebrate Morgan's Millie win. So Sale, 31%, kicked over my wife's garbage can, 31% K rate to lefties on the air, 32.5 to righties. No one hits him. 286 ex-Woba to lefties, 261 to righties, 15% plus swinging strike rate, no ISO, absolutely dominant. There's not a negative in this data right now, other than, I guess, fastballs to lefties, which he's thrown 116 times out of, I don't know, it's like 10%. So everything on the Chris Sale side, I don't see any scenario where anybody's like, well, that doesn't look very good. And then we take it even a step further and we go to look at the active roster for the Nats against lefties. This is where it really starts to stand out. So let's look at K rate. Well, the Washington Nationals active roster has struck out more against lefties than any team in the league at 27.5%. Not only that, they have the 3rd lowest walk rate. Not only that, they have the lowest ISO. Not only that, they have the lowest WRC plus. You've got Chris Sale, a lefty who does not get hit and strikes out everybody, taking on a Washington Nationals team that is the worst in baseball against lefties, that strikes out the most, that has the least amount of power, that barely walks. I can't see a scenario where you could look at this and think, I would prefer to not get the Sale today. Now, obviously, it's a 3-game slate. Anything is capable of happening. The Washington Nationals can score 10 runs off of Chris Sale in 2 innings. That can happen. It is not likely. But it's going to be pretty difficult to find a pitcher that could ever set up better than this. I mean, his live odds, I haven't looked at this yet. I'm pulling up Odd Shopper right now. I have to assume that these numbers are about to be preposterous. Yeah. 8.5 is his K prop, and it's juiced to the over more than it's juiced to the under. Mackenzie Gore, 4.5. Pivetta, 4.5. Freddie Peralta, 5.5. Verlander, 4.5. McGreevy, 3.5. He's basically projected for the same amount of strikeouts as any 2 pitchers you choose and add them together. From an outs perspective, 18.5 juice to the under. So we're expecting him to go out there and throw 6 innings. Mackenzie Gore, 15.5 juice to the under. Pivetta should go deep. Peralta sitting at 16.5. Verlander should go deep. Very different game. And then McGreevy's at 16.5. So you're expecting way more strikeouts, more outs than anything else. I assume his earned run prop is 1.5 juice to the under. 1.5 neutral. I mean, that's crazy. Mackenzie Gore is projected to give up a full run more than Chris Sale, and they're both starting pitchers. So at this point, I have nothing else to say about Chris Sale as a starting pitcher today. I know there's like 6 of you in chat right now. Do any of you have a negative for Sale today? Because I don't think that we will. Now, that says nothing for like, let's say that we knew for a fact he's 89% owned. Obviously, there are paths to getting to everybody else on a 3-gamer. All it takes is 2 decent starters and you're fine. But that's more of a lineup construction conversation than a performance thing. To me, it's impossible to look at him any other way. It's the second decision you make that I think is actually the trickiest one, because I think the best option to get to today is Justin Verlander at 6,700. But Justin Verlander is not the same as Nick Pivetta, and he's not the same as Freddie Peralta. So I want to start by looking at Verlander, mostly because I've already done it. This is one of the few guys that I dug into before we started. So let's start with the good part here. This game is in San Francisco, which means we're going to limit power as much as we can in any ballpark. Now, this is not the Justin Verlander of old, which we're well aware of. He is, he's just an old man now. Very relatable. Hope his gal keeps him young. We're going to talk about something in like the 20 to 21% K rate. 151x ISO to lefties, 180 to righties, 320x WOBA to both hands. He's been solid. This is like an average starting pitcher right now. But he's in a park that shouldn't hurt him. And it's not even just that the park won't hurt him. It's that the matchup probably shouldn't. St. Louis has the 6th lowest WRC plus against righties. Now, to be fair, Colorado is on an island as the worst team. Pittsburgh is 2. And then pretty much everybody after that is kind of the same. There's no real difference between Texas and Cincinnati, 3 points of WRC plus. St. Louis, though, from a power perspective, 3rd lowest ISO of any team in the league against righties. There's not a lot of power to be had in this Cardinals lineup. And this is a park that will neutralize power. Now, they don't strike out a ton. And from a walk perspective, they're in the middle of the pack. But park is great, and just overall talent is not all that entertaining. And that leads us to a Justin Verlander today that has the 2nd highest top 2 pitcher odds at 33%, the 2nd highest top 2 value odds at 44%. But he's only 30% owned. Same as Pivetta, slightly more than Freddie Peralta, but mostly the same. And then you've got Mackenzie Gore and McGreevy, who are largely unowned, who we'll talk about how to use those guys in the best possible way to find leverage for a slate. But as I'm looking at Verlander, what's the downside here? Because he doesn't need to rack up strikeouts at 6,700 to make him a reasonable play. Could he go 5 or 6 innings and just avoid any sort of disaster and be enough? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, obviously, you expect one of Pivetta or Peralta to slip through and be good, but you're also talking about an extra $2,200 for Pivetta on top of Verlander. You're talking about an extra 22 and 5, 2,700 more for Peralta? No, that's not right. 2,300 more? Oh yeah, Pivetta is 1,800. That's some shit math. Nick Pivetta is $1,800 more expensive than Justin Verlander. Peralta is 23. But the Sale Verlander combo just seems easy. What we need to do is figure out, do we have a lean between Nick Pivetta and Freddie Peralta? Essentially the same salary, essentially the same top 2 odds, essentially the same ownership. I think this is the driving decision point for this game, is getting Pivetta and or Peralta correct. So Pivetta, 26% K rate against both hands. His expected power is brutal. It's a 200x ISO. It's a 111 real ISO to lefties and a 167 to righties. So my expectation is that the truth is somewhere in the middle for Nick Pivetta. And they're going to be taking on a Milwaukee team who on this season, 11th in WRC plus, 21st in ISO. Those are basically just average. But they also strike out at the 25th highest strikeout rate, or they don't strike out all that much at 20.8%. Now, if we look at it from the opposite side and we look at Freddie Peralta against San Diego, Peralta, bigger strikeout stuff, 25% K rate to lefties, 31 to righties. Less of a power issue, at least expected. 140 X ISO to lefties, 160 to righties. Sub 300 X WOBA. Freddie Peralta is better than Nick Pivetta. This much we know is true. However, San Diego has the 4th highest WRC plus. ISO a little bit lower, oddly enough, just 24th. But San Diego is also with the 4th lowest strikeout rate of any team against righties this season. So Peralta is better, but with a death matchup. Pivetta is slightly worse, but has a slightly better matchup. So as we look at the props, I think comparing these guys will tell a pretty big story. Pivetta's at 17.5 outs. Peralta's at 16.5. We're expecting Nick Pivetta to record 1 extra out. Now, from a strikeouts perspective, Pivetta at 4.5 with heavy juice to the over. Freddie Peralta at 5.5 with some solid juice to the under. This is essentially the same strikeout prop, but you expect Pivetta to go slightly deeper into this game. And then from an earned run perspective, over 1.5, minus 168, over 1.5, minus 147, maybe like an extra 1/10 of a run or so to Pivetta. If I'm ranking these guys, I want to get to Nick Pivetta before I get to Freddie Peralta. What I think is the interesting question point here is, can we get to Mackenzie Gore? Gore's got the date with the Braves, 30% K rate to lefties, 26% to righties, 170 X ISO to both. Probably looks a little bit more like a a left-handed Freddie Peralta in this spot. But if we take a look at the Braves' active roster against lefties this season, 17th in WRC plus, average K rate, but Atlanta is tied for the 5th lowest ISO in baseball against lefties. I think a $7,700 Mackenzie Gore at 15% ownership on a 3-game slate is massively under-owned. Is it a good spot? No. Is it the highest implied total? Yes. 24% top 2 pitcher odds, 15% ownership. That is some legitimate positive leverage. Because Mackenzie Gore's sitting there with a 4.5K prop. a little bit behind Nick Pivetta, but nothing like truly crazy. If we're talking about outs, 15.5 juice to the under. That's the problem. You just don't expect Mackenzie Gore to be going very deep in this game. And you expect runs, 2.5 is the earned run prop. But there is some upside to Mackenzie Gore today because of his ownership. And I think we want to pay attention to that one. Now, we got to talk about everybody, unfortunately. So we do have to talk about Michael McGreevy. This is a man with a 15% K rate. Righties don't hit him. Lefties hit him long time. 240x ISO, 388x WOBA this season to lefties. Now, San Fran against righties on the year. 12th in WRC plus. Middle of the pack 165 ISO. Middle of the pack strikeout rate. 10th, but those are all the same. But what is interesting, second highest walk rate of any team against righties this year. Now, if we just want to take a peek at old Michael McGreevy, this is not a man that walks people. So that's an interesting balance. He's got a 4% walk rate so far this season. He walked just 4.9% of batters in AAA this year. Didn't really walk anybody in his brief major stint last year. How am I not sharing where did that go? How long have I not been sharing my screen? I don't even know how I made that go away. My bad. So the one benefit here, the walk rate for the Giants, is not really something that is going to play to any sort of benefit for McGreevy. I just he's so clearly the last dude. So while there might be positive leverage there, I got more interest in Verlander. Mackenzie Gore, though, I think is underrepresented. If I'm ranking this in terms of guys I expect to get the most of, obviously Sale is 1. I think Verlander's 2, and I think Mackenzie Gore is 3. I ran this sim before we got started. I saved my top 150 lineups. I don't know what these exposures are about to look like. I do know that I can make this screen significantly bigger for everybody. 92% exposure to Sale, 55% exposure to Verlander, 14 to Gore. All I want to see right here is what happens if I give Mackenzie Gore a 10% bump. How does this change? I want to know how much does 10% move up Mackenzie Gore? And the answer is it doubles. We maintain Sale at 90. We maintain Verlander at 49. It gives me 27% of Gore, essentially 2x the field. And then I'm under Pivetta, much more under Peralta, and essentially no McGreevy. The exposures that I have on the screen right now are what I'm hoping to see 10 hours from now, or whenever the hell lock is, 7:15. That's what I see from the pitching side. Do you guys see it any differently? Is there anything you want me to look at on the pitching end before we try to sum up these stacks as well? I'm going to take a nice sip of coffee. I think I've exhausted every legitimate word I could say about the pitching side of this slate. That's what happens when there's 3 games. You can say a lot, and it doesn't take very long. But I'm guessing you guys are on the same side. Getting DMs from our boy Laffy. All right, let's move to stacks. I think that's all we can do right now. We'll build a lineup or two and then get the hell out of here. Top stacks. Here we are. The Atlanta Braves and the San Francisco Giants have essentially the same top stack odds. We're sitting at about 21%. Giants a much better value proposition. Atlanta's at 15%. Giants are at 25%. That's the second highest mark. But the Atlanta Braves are the top stack in ownership at 23%. Giants, Cardinals, Padres all coming in around 18. Milwaukee coming in at 15. And the Washington Nationals coming in at 8.5, which I find interesting. Now, from a stack score perspective, Giants are at the tip, then the Cardinals, then Atlanta, then this two-man Milwaukee, San Diego spot that's terrifying, and then obviously the Nats bringing up the rear. The question then becomes, where do we go from here? Because we just talked, we know what we're getting here. Now, for the Braves, they are getting this date with Mackenzie Gore. And I guess the hopeful part here is that you just find a homer or two. You take a look at the top batters tool for right now. Obviously, things look good for Ronald Acuna, for Matt Olson, for Marcell Ozuna. Not too shabby for Profar or Michael Harris. But these guys aren't cheap either. $6K for Acuna, $5,500 for Profar, $5K for Olson. I mean, if you're going to those three dudes, probably going to be getting that Justin Verlander SB2 situation. But it's not bad. I mean, the bottom of the order is tough. Like Nacho Alvarez, if he homers today, you're pretty stoked that you fell into that one. Acuna, 28% owned right now. That is the most owned individual hitter. Albies is second. Olson is fourth. Kim is sixth. There's a lot of ownership coming into Atlanta. Some of which you're happy about, some of which a bit less so. There's obviously an opportunity to try to hunt a little bit of power against Mackenzie Gore. But I got to be honest, if they're the most owned team, that's not my favorite spot because I don't think that they stand out in any major way. Now, the San Francisco piece, that's where it gets a little weirder because I mean, clearly we're getting a infinitely better matchup. This is the best matchup anybody has. And we're seeing that comparable ownership to Adames, to Chapman, to Devers in the same way we were for the top of the Braves lineup. These guys are much cheaper. Devers at $5,400. Your next most expensive guy in the projected lineup is Chapman at $43. So from a point per dollar perspective, much easier to get to San Francisco. And you expect more offensively out of San Francisco. However, we know we're in a death park. This is an 80 park factor for home runs. Outside of Pittsburgh, we don't really limit power much more. So that kind of scares me. Which means do we go to this Milwaukee-San Diego game? Now, if we wanted to do that, it stands to reason to me that we would want to look at Milwaukee. 15% top stack odds, fine. 10% top value is the lowest mark, and they're the second lowest owned team. But if you're ever going to try to buy any power, this feels like the sneaky spot to try to get it, right? The problem is the lack of power. And these guys aren't exactly free. Chourio and Yelich both over 5K. Turang and Contreras both sitting just shy of it. But I gotta be honest. If I want to take one spot here, I think Milwaukee's my sneak. I'm just curious if we're getting them already. 10% 5-mans, 11% 3-mans. Overall, fourth in exposure at 25%. I would like to walk San Fran back a hair. Maybe give a 5% boost to Milwaukee. Let's see what that looks like in my top 150. Moves Milwaukee to the top. Maybe more than we would like. Yeah, I'm going to pull that 5% and see if just the knockdown of the Giants gives me what we're looking for here. That's still a pretty sizable chunk of Milwaukee, which I like. Moves them to second at 28%. We get Atlanta. We get St. Louis. It does bring the Giants down a bit. I got to be honest, guys. I really like these exposures. We're getting Gore. We're getting over on Verlander. We're getting as much sale as we realistically can. I'm just going to ask you guys right now, overall, just hit me with it. Who do you like the most today as your primary stack? Where are you guys leaning? Because Atlanta's a wild card. And obviously I like Gore a bit, but I want both sides. I hate being in San Francisco. I think Milwaukee's the team. I'm going to build a Milwaukee lineup in the single lineup sim right now. Let's see what it looks like. So Contreras has to go in. Bryce Turing has to go in. Milwaukee and Atlanta, Ken. Going with the motivated Giants team. Jake Mohammed likes the Giants as well. We'll take a peek at the Giants in depth a little bit further. Let's get Jake Bowers in at first. I'm just going to see what it looks like with Churio and Frelick. If we just complete that lineup, whoops. Let's try that again. If we just complete that lineup, we end up with Sale Verlander. We get Kim as a one-off Atlanta bat, 2-man Giants stack. I got to rerun it because I set it to small, but it'll be positive. Yeah. All right, let me just take Kim back out of there, complete the lineup. Let's try that again. All right, now it's on a large contest. But this should look pretty decent. I like that build. I like the Milwaukee side. I think it's easy to get to. Yeah, 40.5% sim ROI, 0.2% chance to win, 30% cash rate. I think it's very, very easy to get to the Milwaukee Brewers. So let's see what San Fran looks like as a stack. We got to get Devers. We got to get Chapman. We got to get Adames. I'm going to take Patrick Bailey and Helio Ramos. And now if we fill that out, Sale Verlander, Brendan Donovan, and then a 2-man Atlanta stack, Ronald Acuna and Marcell Ozuna. Let's see how this one ends up looking. I'm less confident in this one, but we'll see. Basically the same. 35.5 sim ROI, 36% cash rate. Just out of curiosity, if I take Chris Sale and I take Mackenzie Gore, what builds the rest of the lineup? We do get 2 Atlanta bats in Olsen and Ozuna. We get a 3-man San Fran and a 3-man. So it's a 3-3-2. And we do take 2 guys against Gore. What does that end up looking like? I think this is way too much ownership, but I want to see it. Yeah, I think we're taking on too much ownership there. If I take Olsen and Ozuna out, we can get... Oh, that's interesting. So that's a 4-4 of St. Louis and San Francisco with Sale and Gore. Very curious here. Don't think this is going to look great, but that's an interesting structure. Stack one game, pitch one game. 22. Yo. On the off chance that you guys are just listening to this and not seeing what popped up on the screen, the Chris Sale, Mackenzie Gore SP1, SP2 combo with the 4-4 Cardinals Giants stack. 85 sim ROI, 0.4% chance to win, 32.5% cash rate. This is the best lineup we built. I gotta be honest, I did not see that coming. I wonder if I pull everybody, does it build that same lineup? Curious. No, if I pull it all back out, it actually turns it into a 5-3 for the Giants. So we had something slightly different when we ran it before. I want to see what it looks like when it's optimal. Ahmad, that's probably not the best strategy to head into a baseball slate. 74% when we go to that 5-3 Giants lineup. But, I mean, that's the best thing we built so far. The Sale-Gore combo. The only other one that I want to look at, can the double pay down even work? What if we flip that on its head and we go Verlander, McGreevy? I assume we just have too much money. Ends up being 5-man Atlanta, 3-man Milwaukee, and we leave $111 or $1,100 on the table. This is going to be massively negative. This is going to be like negative 50, negative 40, negative 25. All right, that's better than I was expecting. Yeah, there's just way too much salary. On the off chance, maybe it's not the double pay down, maybe it's the semi-double pay down. What if I do Verlander Gore? Because that's probably going to give us the salary savings we need to like make this functional. Hold on. Okay. If we run this for everybody, I want to take Acuna out and Ozuna out. What's the path there? 2 outfielders, 4,900 available. Ahmad, it's baseball, man. I'm not a believer in most of these guys, but every once in a while, somebody stupid hits a homer. What if we go to... God, we have so much salary to spend here. James Wood and Jackson Merrill. So 4-2-1-1. What does that end up looking like? Yeah, negative 29. Yeah, it's tough to do anything without Chris Sale. What happens if we go Pavetta Verlander? Three-man Giants, 2-man St. Louis, two-man Atlanta. I don't like the two-man St. Louis in there. We could turn that into Riley. Now it's 4 Atlanta, 3 Giants, 1 off Riley Adams. Let's see what that looks like. This is probably going to be the last one we build here. I'll sum up my final thoughts. There's only so much you could say here for this 3-gamer. All right, we got into the positive with a non-Chris Sale lineup. I like it. So here's where I land on pitching. Chris Sale is number 1 with 1,000 bullets. Verlander seems like the easiest SP2 option to get to. I think Mackenzie Gore is quite a bit under-owned. I lean Pivetta over Peralta. From a stack perspective, I think I like Milwaukee more than I like any individual team relative to ownership. Atlanta has upside, so when I don't have an increased Gore, I'm happy to fill out with Atlanta. I got to be honest, even with them being number 1 in stack score for the Giants, I really just don't like getting offense in San Francisco. I anticipate being lighter there. I expect Milwaukee and St. Louis to be the 2 teams I end up with the most here today. So that's where we stand at 11:42 a.m. on this lovely Monday 3-gamer. Back tomorrow for what I assume is like a pretty reasonable slate. Well, I'm back for the rest of the week for what I assume is a reasonable slate. You've got MLB Live Before Lock tonight. I believe it's Eric and Bellman for this one. And then you'll get NFL Live Before Lock tonight prior to Monday Night Football, Lions and Ravens. Guys, thank you so much for being here. I know we don't have a ton going on today, but I appreciate the 55 of you that showed up for this one on YouTube. Hit the like button on your way out the door if you haven't done it yet. Subscribe to the channel. Gonna have plenty of content coming out as we normally do. But I'll see you guys again tomorrow morning. This was the MLB Strategy Show.